webinar, we're just going to cover best practices for building TikTok accounts, content polls, how to hire, build a content team, going over the growth stages for an author. And then the last 2 bits is just going to be during the Q&A. So I'm just going to cover all the important things here because I know a lot of people are busy today. So first thing is, let's talk about what the ideal winning author team looks like in 2025. So I think the biggest problem is figuring out how you guys fit in the business, right? So as an author, the sole focus is you are making money for the business, right? If you run this as a business, you want to maximize the amount of money you can bring in, right? And the way to do that is you have to write more books. And the way you write more books is you need a lot of time. Authors make a lot of money licensing their books too. There are authors I'm working with where they're getting print deals, right? Like, what's crazy is even the print deals today that you're seeing, it wasn't really possible even 5-10 years ago, right? Like a lot of publishers wouldn't take print only deals. So it goes to show how much of the market has shifted ever since authors have started diving into social media. Like the way I see this market heading is I think we're going to become a very author dominated sort of like market now, where publishers are more of an ancillary sort of like leg in the whole business model versus authors having to rely on publishers, which is like absolutely crazy because even a decade ago, no one really thought that this would happen, right? But there are lots of authors that I'm working with where they get print-only deals or they'll put their books on Ingram. And because of social media, like bookstores are starting to order their paperbacks and everything on Ingram. So you yourself, you're basically the main money generator in the business, right? So at the core, your main responsibility is you're basically creating IP to make money, right? So the more books you put out, the more likely that you can increase how much you're making, right? Overall, as like years go by. And of course, you have to wear many hats early on. You have to know how to market your book. You have to identify your readers. You have to have a good understanding of the publishing landscape. And of course, these hats can be delegated over time as more money comes into the business. But the problem here, though, is everyone has to exist to serve authors. And that's why, of course, there's various service providers that pop up. And there's more and more coming into the space, right? Because as an author, you can't really, if you're making over 10 grand a month now, you really need to start considering building a content team. Because if you're spending like 20 hours a week on social media, right, you can still spend time. I'm gonna say you shouldn't spend time, but over the course of a year, that could be an extra, like, what is that? Like 6,000 hours that you could be putting towards making more books, right? So really the winning ideal team, like at its core, if you're trying to get to like 10 or more a month, right? I instead of a PA, I think a business administrator is sort of what you're looking for now. So I'm going to have examples of this in the webinar now, but the individuals, you want someone who can obviously help coordinate with your editors, help plan your book signings if you have any. You need them to help build, run, manage your email list, schedule book promos, know how to run ads on Meta, TikTok, Amazon. It'd be a great plus if they can be a literary agent or they can work with your agent and whatnot. And of course, all of these things I'm listing is a unicorn business admin. There's not that many people who probably have all these skill sets, which is why most authors might have 2 or 3 different people where they all specialize in a certain area. You might have someone who posts all your social media because they're just good at that. You might have someone who handles all your admin side. You might have a literary agent that you work with, right? So these roles will be delegated. But at its core, you really need sort of like a business administrator in a way. Not necessarily a personal assistant, right? And there are skills that a personal assistant today may not have that may service the needs, because as the business grows, the responsibilities will also grow as well. So, and this role is vital for the core functions for authors to run their business, because early on, you're probably going to wear all the hats, but eventually you have to give those hats to other people, right? Because in order for you to get to like 100K a month, 200K a month, there's a lot more work that you're going to have to do on the creative side, and you have to focus on better like releases, polish your books, and so on. So this is like the ideal winning team, is like you really, really need someone who can help with you on the business side as you scale. So if you don't have that person, you got to start thinking about like, what are the things that you need for the business, and what are the things that someone can do for that business, and how can you find this talent, and so on. Now, we're going to talk about how to build the TikTok account. We're going to come back to the business stuff later on. But as far as building an account goes, there are 3 core roots that you have to understand, which is content, sounds, and the format. So content at its core, if you guys have been in the Facebook group chat today, and yesterday, I brought up something called Reader ICP, which is your ideal customer profile. So a Reader ICP is a detailed description of your ideal or dream reader. You know, the person who's very motivated to engage with you and most likely to love your books and buy your books consistently. You have to have a profile of who you're trying to sell to. And I think that's like a mistake a lot of people make early on, because I'm sure you've heard of authors say, oh, it took me like 20 books before I really figured out what I was doing. And part of that is because a lot of people don't really know who their audience is. Like if I ask you, like, who are your buyers? Like, what are the readers you're catering or selling to? A lot of people might actually have to think about this, because they might not realize, oh, like I don't know who my readers are or what they're wanting from me. So the 4 key things is, the first thing is you have to understand what are their pain points and desires. Like what kind of book are they looking for? You know, what gaps are they trying to fill? An example of this is if you saw the crazy rise with like Fourth Wing as an example, right? Like that covers a lot of tropes, a lot of elements that wasn't available in the market, right? Other books are like Akutar. You've had that had a crazy run up, right? Even whatever genre you're in, there's gonna be someone that will service that. There's that one author, Jaquel, that hit #1, and she's writing books for like Black readers, you know what I mean? Like people of color, writing characters of color, because a lot of people don't know how to write those characters properly. So she's like covered that whole vacuum, and organically, you know, it's crazy. She was able to hit #1 on Amazon recently. But if you look at her last like several releases, it's insane. Like how she was like climbing. I've been following her books for like the last 2 years, and she's filled that need, because there's not a lot of authors that are writing people of color as their main characters, right? Because they don't understand that culture. I think Rena Kent got blasted on social media for that like a while back, because she said that she can't write people of color because she doesn't have that experience. But that's what I mean, is there are people out there that are looking for those kind of books, and you have to be able to fill that gap. Now, the reason it matters is if you're writing a book and you don't really take this into consideration, you're going to write something that might not be sellable, right? So you have to pick and choose your target market. You have to choose the right platform. You have to build long-term reader relationship. Yeah, like Anna Huang, because she's Asian, you know, she was able to write an Asian female character that resonated with a lot of readers that not a lot of people, you know, there weren't any books like that before, right? So now she's expanding and she's like filling that vacuum, right? So if you ask like who are Asian like romance authors, there's only a handful of people can really think about. So that's what I mean, is that there's gaps in the market that you have to fill, that you have to identify. I had this conversation, with this one author who wrote, it was an Egyptian romance, right? And I told her, how big is the market for Egyptian romance? You know, and she's like, oh, I don't know. And then I looked up on Amazon, I could only find like 10 books, right? And I told her, instead of focusing on Egyptian romance, I think Egyptian should be secondary. Like that could be more of a feature instead of like the main focus. Because if you're trying to sell a book that has sort of a niche that isn't as popular, it is going to be hard to get readers to be interested in. Because the reason certain genres do really, really well is every single big author is spending marketing dollars growing that market, right? So if Egyptian romance isn't that popular, you're going to be the one that has to drive that market, which is very expensive. So the reason you see some authors, like there are authors out there that'll say, I don't spend any money on ads and I make 30K a month, right? Well, the reason that happens is because there's like thousands of people that are spending advertising dollars every single day, you know, millions and millions and millions of advertising dollars expanding and creating that market. So that gives opportunity to people, like hockey romance, right? With hockey romance, there's only like 30 big hockey authors I can really think about, but they're the ones building that market for everyone else to come in. So this is why this is very important to understand, is if you're trying to write a book and you want to get into a market, but you have no idea who your readers are, it's like you're building a product and you're trying to sell it, but you didn't like do the research, right? So by understanding and doing this, it does make your content creation way easier, because you don't have to guess what you're posting anymore, because you know, oh, this is what my readers are looking for, because you already know like who they are. And because of that, you understand, like think about even like aesthetics for book covers, right? Like at book signings, right? There are authors that have limited like special editions, hardcovers, sprayed edges, dust jackets, right? Why are people paying like $100 for those hardcovers? It's because like they know what aesthetics that those readers are looking for. If you had no market research and you were gonna launch, let's just say you're gonna print 1,000 hardcover special editions, but you had no idea what people wanted, you're not likely to sell out because there's no demand for what you're putting together because you didn't really like piece it together, right? So this is really important stuff that I think a lot of people don't consider, and this is way more important before you even start writing a book. Now, the fourth thing is, again, knowing this will help you understand what passages to pull from your book. The reason all of this is important is if you now understand what your readers are looking for, what they're craving for, what they want to buy, well, now you can figure out, okay, like what can I present to them to sell them on this? And I highly recommend, again, like T. Taylor is like the only person I can just think about, but I've bought like 7 sets of her books here for readers on my team because I want them to understand the buttery passages, why people consume what they consume. And I'll touch on that too here. I actually have a couple examples, but you really have to understand who your readers are and what market you're in, right? And just knowing that makes your TikTok content pulls way easier. Okay, so that's the first core fundamental is understanding who your readers are, right? And that's basically content at its core in a way. The second thing is picking sounds. So as people know, the term trending sounds that others use in BookTok that they're using, the way it works, I'm going to show an example of this on the BookTok tracker software that I put together, but essentially the more people that use the sound, the more TikTok pushes content using it. You really have to think of sounds as an audience size. So if you've ever run Facebook ads, you know how there's different interests on Facebook, right? Just think of the amount of people using the sound every day. They're pulling readers or viewers into that sound. So an example here is Trend Talk. If they have this like display here, just to give you an idea. So like when Driver's License by Olivia Rodriguez came out, they give you an estimate number of views between all the content that's being utilized in that sound. So that's what I mean by just imagine it as an audience. As more people use it, the potential audience size grows, which means getting a viral TikTok is way easier, right? But at the same time, it's also harder as more people jump into it. So you really need to get in early. You have to identify sounds. The key criteria that I look for is, do I believe other people in BookTok are going to use the sound? So do I see other authors, readers, creators using this sound to promote their books? If that's the first like criteria you have to consider. So an example is if you have a bunch of friends and you're following them and you're just using the sounds they pick, that's a great way to start. And the reason people do that naturally is on the back end, if you see a friend of yours get like 10,000 views on a sound, you suddenly believe, oh, if I use this sound, I might be able to get 10,000 views as well, right? So that's what I mean by actively used by others does this sound aesthetic sort of fit the potential, like will it grow, right? It also has to fit your content. Like you can't have a song or a sound that doesn't fit your passages. Like you can't have an upbeat sound if your content's more like sad in a way, right? Because it just doesn't mix. So it also has to fit the content. And lastly, of course, if you factor those first 2 criteria in, then you have to think about the virality potential as more and more people use it. So those are the 3 main things you have to think about. And you want to pick it before it goes viral, because if you manage to get into like this as an example, like if you got into it pre-December and you kept posting it, and then as suddenly it starts to rise up, most of the people that are first movers are the ones that are likely to get all that attention. So if you ever look at TikToks, like if you go to the sound section and you go to videos, you will see a lot of the early people are the ones that are at the top, and you don't really see a lot of newcomers till like way later. So that's sort of like predicting. You sort of have to predict. It's a lot of like mental gymnastics. You really have to think about, do I see this being used by everyone in my social circle? Do I see people that write similar books like me using this sound for their books? And then now BookTok Tracker is free, by the way, guys. We spent a lot of money building this out, and we're still like building it. I'm just going to show you guys like how the sound statistics here work. So if you guys look at the chart I have here, I'm actually going to pull it up. So this is my super admin view here, and we're actually going to launch this one here like probably later next week. But the way this works is, let's say you can only track up to 5 accounts on the free version right now, but you see over here in this command console here, so this tracks all the sounds that you're tracking. So we're tracking 778 accounts right now, and those 778 accounts has posted 32,000 TikToks to date, right? but we've managed to scrape almost 8,000 sounds here. And you can see here, the way it basically works is I'm looking for volume, like how much the sound is moving. So an example here is if I pull up this here, you see how this this is the total number of videos since I started tracking it. So when I first started tracking the sound, it had 19,510 videos, right? But fast forward, look a couple days later, it's at 33, 47, 72, 12,000, 122,000. You see how it just blew up to over 2 million, 2.7 million, right? If you had gotten here early on, you would have basically rode the wave all the way up. So you can see how the daily gains are just like stacking up like crazy. This song or the sound at the rate it's going, it's probably going to hit like 5 million videos, right? So what does that mean in terms of potential? The more someone's using that sound, the more likely you also have the opportunity to go viral because the audience size is that much bigger, right? I mean, look, if 150 sounds are being added, or it's not sounds, 150,000 videos are being added every day to this sound, and let's just say the average TikTok pulls in 500 views, that's, what is that? 75 million views a day potentially, or more, right? Because you got to consider all the videos from before. Like the audience size is just massive, right? But if you were to compare that to something that's not moving, so like, and the reason some go down is because people private or it gets deleted. But let's say, okay, let's look at this one here. You see how this one's a lot slower? It's moving a lot slower. If I was to pull the sound up on TikTok, you probably see that it's a lot harder to go viral, right? But at the same time, if there's potential in the future, it might work. But as of now, there's been a downtrend, meaning not a lot of people are using it. And the reason that's important to know is, do you really want to use a sound that not a lot of people are using? If not a lot of people are using it, it's more than likely that it's just not going to pull in that many more views. That doesn't mean you can't go viral. It just means that it's not as easy to get something to move. So again, this is booktok tracker. The domain's now called growyourpublishing.com, but I think booktalktracker.com redirects. It's free to sign up. You can add up to 5 accounts, and it pulls all the sounds you're using, and then you can just see how all the sounds are performing, basically. Is that why sometimes? Yeah, so the reason, if you posted a TikTok 2 weeks ago and then suddenly went viral, it's because the amount of videos that are being added to that TikTok sound just keeps growing. And because you had like really good numbers early on, it's more likely to keep growing, basically. So that's just how this works. So now let's talk about content formats, which is the third one. Okay, so there are 4 formats that I'm currently utilizing. These are all of our accounts, by the way. So some of them I just hid, but this one I call the Canva 1-slide format. So this could either be a video or 2-slide TikTok. If it's 2-slide, you just have the hook. So you just move the hook to the first slide, and then the second one's the white text, like the white space and everything, right? You can also use this for black backgrounds, but I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this. So I just call this the Canva 1-slide format. There's also an Imagine format that we've been doing where we just take all the slides and just make it into a video, and then there's a video in the background. The third one's the paperback format. If you guys ever seen video like TikToks like this, we push this heavily too. And the last one is the slideshow format. Now, if your book is spicier, so I think understanding formats has been game changing for us because we started putting this together like last year. And what I realized is if you have a very spicy book, it's probably not going to work the best for slides, because if you have noticed with spicier content, if you were to write it out as a slide, it's not likely to get pushed out because of all the new terms of services that TikTok has added, right? So you might want to not have spicy content, right? But that doesn't mean you can't use it. It's just the format doesn't work. I found that for spicier stuff, having a paperback format or the 1-slide format works the best. I think the reason it works the best is TikTok can't really read text that's added outside of the app, right? So if you have to add the text, they can see that. But if you were to make it outside of TikTok, they're less likely to be able to read it. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that they can't read it, but it's just the likelihood of them reading it is very, very low. I've also found with the paperback format, it tends to serve to booktok a lot easier because I think TikTok recognizes that it's a paperback, so they associate it with books. The challenge is here, though, is the slideshow format tends to convert the best if you have angsty tension, like anything that's you can write it out as a slide. Like it'll work the best, right? But for spicier formats, paperback and one slide format works the best. But the difficulty is the conversion value of the other formats tend to be a lot lower than slideshows. Like if I had to give a weight, let's just say 1,000 views, right? 1,000 views on a slideshow is like pretty good. You might have to get like 3,000 on a paperback to get the same value as a slideshow. You might have to get 2,000 on Imagine to get the same value as slideshow. You might have to get 3,000 on one slide to get the same value as the slideshow format. So overall, in terms of conversion value, I found slideshows work the best, but it depends on the type of content as well. Like spicier content might be able to convert better, but again, it just depends on how you deploy it. So if you have a book that's just really, really angsty, you might have a better luck with the slideshow and the Imagine format, and the paperback and Canva might not work as well. If you're in romantasy, right, I have found Imagine and slideshows might work better, but paperback and one slide, you just have to get like 2 or 3 times more views to get it to convert the same. So so for us, I look at, there's like a ratio we set depending on the tropes and the genre. We sort of, so for instance, like if you give me a really, really spicy book, it might be like 20% slides, 80% paperback, Canva, one slide format, and then maybe like not using the Imagine, or the Imagine would be baked into the 20% with slides and Imagine. But overall, understanding the formats they have available to you will help maximize your potential with conversion value from readers, right? Because again, if you have spicier content, the Imagine and the slideshow format just might not work because it'll just keep flagging your videos, you know? The final boss is watch time. So the 3 routes that I just covered, you have to be able to blend all of that. But not only that, you have to be able to match it with the watch time. So this is a brand new account that I put together like 2 weeks ago. And you can see it's doing okay. I had one TikTok hit 14K. I had one hit 5. The rest are at like 1. I had like 2 that didn't do as well, and I realized like why they didn't do as well. But essentially, watch time refers to how long viewers engage with your video, and it's one of the most important metrics when it comes to the TikTok analytics. The shorter the TikTok is, the higher the retention rate you need. So if you post a 2-slide TikTok, you might have to get 80 to 90% retention. So what that means is if you have like 2 photos here, it might have to be like 1.8 probably, or even 2, right? So you might need like 100% because of how short it is. And you might need 15 to 20 seconds of average watch time to perform well. So how do I get this number? You convert all of this into seconds, and then you divide it by your total number of views. So the longer it is, the more of this you need, but this drops down. So for instance, for this to work really well, you see how I got 8.1 out of 17. So that's like 46, 47%. I think the total watch time was like 34 seconds. Now, part of this is also due to the sound. I think the sound really helped move the TikTok further. If I pick a sound that didn't work as well, I probably would have got stuck at like 1,000. So that's why you have to pick the right sounds, and you have to look for sounds that are also moving. So that way you can sort of like write up the wave. Yeah, so essentially, the longer your TikTok is, like there are people out there that say you need 30 to 35 slides. The length doesn't actually really matter. What really matters is how much time someone spends on your TikTok and how much engagement that you pull in as well, along with the high retention rate. Just having 35, naturally, of course, if you have 30 to 35 slides, people might spend more time on it, right? Because they have to flip through longer. So you might be able to get a higher photo view rate, but it gets really, really hard. Like the longer you go, the harder it is to get this number to keep up. If you go to your analytics and you look at your content, if this, let's just say this was like 10 seconds, and if this is 10 seconds, this is likely to be lower, because the more time someone spends on your content on TikTok, the more likely the retention rate is going to be higher. So you have to look at all these numbers as well as the 3 routes that I just covered in order to make the best TikTok. Now, for those of you guys listening to this, like this is a lot of like mental gymnastics that you have to do, but the algorithm favors videos or TikToks with strong watch time because it signals a value. So to go viral, you need all of those 3 elements working together, which is a trending or relevant sound. You have to have a strong content format that works for your book, and you need an engaging content that keeps people watching, right? Mastering these 3 ensures that your TikTok's not only seen, but also shared. So you see how this one had like 12 shares? Shares are also going up in value right now because the more people that share your content, the more likely that you know, oh, like this is really good content and this is what TikTok wants. If you make one mistake with the 3 elements, you're just not going to get views. Like it's really, really, really hard, right? Which is why a lot of people now, authors especially, previously you probably didn't have to spend as much time. And the reason nowadays you might have to spend like 5 times more time compared to like last year or the year before is because you have to knock all 3 core like roots out as well as master watch time. So it's like really difficult, right? And in order to do really, really well with this, you just have to spend time on the platform. But again, that's also another challenge. So this is where finding passages matter because you can't just slap anything random on TikTok. You have to really think about, okay, if these are the 3 core roots I need plus watch time, that does filter out some of the passages if you think about what you have to pull. So here's an example. I'm gonna show you guys an example. Like I'm gonna break this one down. The one that got 14. So this is a brand new account, right? A lot of people struggle with new accounts. I was really surprised that this account did really well, like out the gate. And the reason is when it comes to finding strong book passages for TikTok, especially booktok, you really have to identify moments that tap into your readers' emotional needs. So readers, like all consumers of media, they're drawn to specific tropes, dynamics, emotional beats. It's the same thing with everyone. If you've ever watched like movies and TV shows and listened to songs, there's just some like relation to that where you suddenly crave more of it, right? So that's what you have to understand. And the reason the reader ICP matters is you have to look for readers like emotional needs, right? Like what tropes, character dynamics, themes, like what makes them stop and they'll pay attention. So an example is Twilight, right? Twilight's not a good book. If you think about the way it's written, it's like fast food fiction, right? Like it's not the best story. It doesn't have a lot of like it does have some depth, but like nothing crazy, right? Like if you're gonna compare Twilight to like Fourth Wing, there's considerable differences with the way it's told, right? But why is it that people have bought so much? Like, why is Twilight such a sensation? If you think about it, it's because it's not necessarily that readers like the writing in a way. It's more about the emotional tensions of an immortal vampire falling in love with a human, right? And that dynamic is what hooked people in, just like that vibe, right? So you have to sort of do the same thing with your book. You have to look for passages that feel like a hit to the story's emotional core, something a potential reader sees and instantly thinks like, I need more of that. Like the best example I made was fast food or DoorDash, right? Like I'm sure you guys have ordered food online before, or you saw something on TikTok and you're like, I want to try that, right? It's the same emotional cravings that readers have. Is you just have to think about like what do they want? Like what do they want to consume and how can I give it to them? Just think of yourself as like a chef, right? You're cooking up things for social media. You have to satisfy their cravings. And if you put content together that is very like low quality, like you just wanted to slap something together, that's like going to a restaurant and your chef just spends 5 minutes on your food and you get it, but you're expected to pay top dollar for it, right? It just doesn't resonate. So you have to really think about the reader's core needs and values as a customer. Like what do they want to eat, right? So you really again have to think about this and plan carefully because the way TikTok's heading right now is like these are like really core requirements you need. Like it's getting harder and harder to just slap something together and making it like you don't want it to be passable anymore. It's the same thing with books. Like if you make a passable book, it's not going to do that well in this market like condition, right? You have to have the best covers, best edits, good storytelling, depth. You have to make it sell, right? So you can't give anything passable. It's just the same thing. Now, with this particular slide, and this is like the final version of it, what I ended up doing is I haven't read the book, by the way. I haven't read the book. But what I did is I went to the keywords, and I started typing in like possession because this is like a grumpy sunshine marriage and convenience sort of book. And I remember the female character had some problems with like the brother because the way it was set up is like the brother wants her to marry this guy, right? So I just started putting in things like, okay, if my readers are into Grumpy Sunshine, that means they're probably looking for like a redeemable character, someone that will protect the female MC because it's billionaire romance. Readers in billionaire romance like to see the male main character protect the female main character. So I just started plugging in keywords and just like looking for like passages. And I just came across this in particular. So I ended up, this is the poll I ended up doing. And I just said, like, he just found out what your brother did to you. He was never supposed to care, blah, 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 right? I just took the passage and I wanted to tweak it. And this is what I got. And then from there, like, it hit like, it's like 15,000 views now, right? But again, why did I pick this scene? So again, I chose that particular scene because it just checks a lot of boxes that readers look for in a main male character. Readers want to see an MMC who's not likable, just likable, but deeply respectable and protective of the FMC. That sense of loyalty and emotional investment is what makes characters resonate. So when a character is willing to stand up or defend someone they care about, it signals depth, integrity, commitment, all the qualities that emotionally hook readers. An example is like Fourth Wing and like The Ritual, right? It's just both of those characters have this deep sense of need to protect the FMC, and there's a big market for those readers. Like if you think about media right now, when you like, no one wants to read a book where there's an unredeemable character, right? No one's gonna spend time just like going through like a crap ton of like abuse and the relationship doesn't make sense. No one's gonna finish a book like that, right? So if you have a scene where the MMC confronts someone for mistreating the female main character, like that's gonna sell because a lot of people like that. Like that's just universally acceptable. It instantly communicates that your characters care for the other character. So it signals like that emotional investment in that character, and readers just want to start to know more about who that character is, usually, right? So great characters, one people admire or idolize, they reflect traits we aspire to or value. So when you're writing, you just have to keep that in mind. You're just not telling a story, you're creating sellable moments that align with what the reader ICP wants. And writing with that clarity makes your content far more impactful and easier to market. So an example is with the new account, all the content I've been pulling, that's the criteria I'm thinking about. Is like, okay, this is what my readers want. This is the type of book I'm pushing. These are the tropes I know that could work well. Let me start looking for moments in the book. So far, the account's done like 25,000 views. I've only posted, I privated, I think, like one video, and I left the other one up. So there's only like 9 TikToks on that account so far, something like that. It's done okay, you know, like it's only been like 2 weeks worth of posting so far, right? As I've been growing it. But you can see that with those fundamentals in mind, like even on a brand new account, like you can do really, really well, right? So now let's get on to how to hire and build a content team. So like I mentioned in the beginning, I think one of the biggest challenges a lot of authors face is you have to hire the right people for content team. So this is what we do. This is my office. There are people here. You can see all the phones. I think a lot of people tend to focus on cost, which is finding someone who's affordable. But that mindset often leads to poor results because it's not really about the money necessarily. You have to start thinking about the value they can bring to your organization. So, for instance, and like if you think about this right now, when authors say, I want someone who can get me views, that's not necessarily the right approach. You want to look for people that can make you money, right? So the problem a lot of people have right now, and by the way, before I even put this together, I actually tried. I don't remember if you remember back in like 2023. I think this was like May or June. I ended up putting out a form where I wanted like PAs from all around the world to apply to see if I can like train them, right? I think I had like 100 people. I had like 100 and 150 people apply, and I made a group chat. I did Zoom calls. I did like 5 calls with everyone, and out of like 100 people, there was only like 2 or 3 people that were actually great. And Jose is actually one of them, guys, who's on the call here. There was also Michaela, and I think there was like Amy at the time, but I know she stopped. Like, I don't know if she's a PA anymore. But there's only like 3 people out of 100 who came through that I felt had value, right? And the reason is just the back end side of the business is a lot of people don't know how money is made in publishing. There's like that disconnect. So you have really 2 options in this industry. Is you either have to train someone around your books, or you have to find someone who can do them for you. But again, there's not that many people out there who have that skill set. And again, like there's not, so an example is here's an example. So I call these tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And these are just posts that I pulled from like a Facebook group with PAs. If you look at authors that are asking questions, I'm like, well, who they're looking for, they're asking all the wrong questions, because there's 3 different tiers of types of service providers, I would say, in content marketing. So tier 1 is these type of people. What you're saying is what they're selling is videos, right? So if you just hire someone and you're like, oh, I'm looking for someone to post 10 TikTok, Instagram a day, right? You're like, I just want to get views. There are people out there that can get you views, but it doesn't mean you're going to make money, because the problem is like you're signal calling people, I just want views. Okay, I can get you views. But suddenly get the views and you don't make money, right? Tier 2 is selling growth. So there's people out there that'll say, I'm going to help you get you views. I'm going to help grow your account. And it's all based on results that I've seen, right? But the key problem here still is money. So tier 3 people are, you're buying money at a discount. That's basically what you're doing, because what you should be asking for really is, I need someone who can post like all these TikToks every day, but also help make money, right? So if you hire someone for like, let's just say it was like $600 a month, right? If you're paying someone $600 a month, there is an expectation of ROI, whether it's time or money coming in. So let's just say you hire someone for $600 a month and they're only making $200, right? Like let's just say it's $200, right? You're not going to keep that person, but the problem is the person that you hired might not understand what you were looking for originally. It's like, yes, like money is important. The problem is a lot of those people don't know how money is made, right? So again, if you look at the examples of the way people are looking for, and if you go through the comments on some of these, a lot of people, what they're understanding is the author wants just views, and that's all I'm going to get them. But they don't really understand, like, I need help making money. So the three things you want to focus on with tier 3 is, when it comes to hiring people, you want to know that your money obviously isn't being fired into like an abyss with no clear outcome. Like there has to be an outcome, because you need to make money to scale. The second thing is you need to hire, train people that can demonstrate that their services are tangibly growing the business. So if someone gets you like 1 million views, you're like, oh, like, did I make any money off of that, right? And the last is you need people who can not just help you grow, but they have to push for the interest of the business needs, so that way you can put more money into your pocket to keep growing, right? Because it's like, so that comes down to where you're buying money at a discount. So if you're paying someone $600, you're expecting, I want to make $1,000 off this person. I feel like that message isn't really communicated. And if you start communicating that way, you're going to quickly find that like 99% of people that apply are just tier 1 or tier 2. And you're not really looking for those people, because at the end of the day, you're buying money at a discount. So when it comes to the strong team, so this is where the business administrator comes into play, is if you're an author and you're struggling right now on social media, you really need to think about who you have in your organization and the value that they're bringing, right? Whether it's saving you time or whether you're buying money at a discount. And the questions, it's not that difficult, to be honest. Like, I think right now we've gone through almost 500 people for the last 2 years. And out of the 500 people, I think we kept like 1 in 4, 1 in 5, and we like continue to train them. It takes about like 2 months for us to train people, by the way. Training people is a bitch. It takes a long time to train people, but there really just isn't that big of a market right now for people that know how to make money, right? So if you're struggling right now, like instead of like spending the next 6 months, 12 months trying to figure out where you can like find talent, it might only take 1 or 2 months really to train someone up to standards. And then you just got to document all of it, write the SOPs, so that way that person can then bring on more people and more people and more people. That's just how you grow a content team, okay? So when we started, I had a whole team handling the backend side, and we're still training people, by the way. We're still like improving systems, and we're still looking for better ways to improve the business, better content formats, and so on, right? Like, so again, everything that I've covered so far in the last like 46 minutes here, you really need to look for someone who can not just handle administrative duties. Like, you need someone for the business who will focus on the business needs and work on growing it. I'm sure you can elevate someone you already have. If you already have a PA, I'm sure if you communicate this to them and say, hey, look, I know you're doing a lot of like email admin stuff, but I really need help on the business side where we can start making more money. And what's the upside to that is, if you have more money, you can pay people more. You can hire better talent. Like, you have access to more opportunities, right? So again, I highly recommend, like, for probably like 99% of people out there, it's really hard. Like I said, I get like 200 people on the wait list. So it's like, there's gonna be that problem, right? So one of the reasons why I'm putting this together is I do want more people in the space coming in to help people. But in general, I think like 1 or 2 months should be like, that should be like the time limit related to see if someone is capable of pulling this off. Okay, so last thing here is just the growth stages for an author, which I actually posted in my Facebook group. And if you haven't seen that post, you can go ahead and like just like look here just to like read it through. If you're doing less than $1,000 a month right now, your key focus should be on making better books, like writing better books, refining your product, right? And just focus on organic. I really recommend people to just focus on TikTok and Instagram until they're at like 5, 6, 7K a month. I don't see advertising paid ads working the best because you need to spend this time to figure out who your audience is. Like if you're doing less than $1,000 a month, you don't really know who your readers are, right? Because you'd be selling more books. So if you're doing less than 1,000, just focus on organic marketing and your books. If you're at 1 to 5, at that level, you should be able to improve your numbers and start seeing some results. And then you want to start thinking about, can I bring someone on to help me on the content side and continue to work on your product? 5 to 10 is where you can probably start some ads, but you might have better cost saving by building a content team because it's like a fixed cost for dynamic results. With paid ads, you're getting fixed expenses for fixed returns. Like it's never going to be dynamic. Like you're not going to spend $500 and you make 10x on that like in a day or something, you know, like it just doesn't really happen that way unless you organic on Amazon is just like amazing. And then once you're at 10 to 20K, that's where you want to start building stability. You've at this level, you should have identified who your key players are, right? And you can see the potential in growing the business. At 20 to 50, you're continuously just refining your systems, bringing more people on. Maybe you delegate some more roles here and there. And then it gets really easy from there. But I think at the fundamental growth stages authors have, I think the biggest issue really is you have to preserve capital. You have to preserve money because if you're not making money, like, you know, spending more money just doesn't help. So again, if you're not doing like 10K a month right now, I just highly recommend just focus on TikTok because the key thing here too is you're also going to find scenes that you can use on Facebook ads. So if you know what sells, then when you make your Facebook ads, you know what'll convert the best because whatever converts well on TikTok is going to convert well on Facebook as well. And then if you're refining your product, you're changing your covers, you have better blurbs, Amazon ads get way easier too as you sell more books. But ultimately, you know, if you're doing less than 10 right now and you're not on TikTok, it's gonna be like wading through mud, basically, at this level. Because like anyone that's running paid ads right now, it's really, really, really hard making money if you don't have like 8 books or 5 books in a series, you know, like making money on standalones today, just with ads, it's challenging. So as far as growth stages go for most people, if you're at 10, 20K a month, I assume you're already running ads, but if you don't have content, I highly recommend adding that in. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and pause so I can save this or stop recording, and then I'm gonna